Hello everyone. We are the Magic Management Squad again, and we're going to be discussing chapter 2, which is titled The Environment of the book. So we're just going to go through by each section of the book, of the chapter, in order to break it down and further understand the terms that were discussed. The first section of the chapter is internal environment, which includes the factors that affect a company's performance within its boundaries. So this can include an organization's mission, their management, and the culture of the organization. It is really important that a company's mission accurately represents the organization's purpose or reason for being. Culture and management go hand in hand. A company must share values, beliefs, and assumptions in order to be organized and successful. Resources and structure are also required to help a company achieve their mission. If you don't have the means necessary and the organization to properly achieve your mission, you're going to fail. Systems, process, or the technology that a company uses is also necessary in the internal environment for purposes of organization and proper distribution of goods and services. This section also talks about the 4 components of a systems process, and this includes inputs, transformation, outputs, and feedback. And all of these components support total quality management in a company. And total quality management is the overall organization of the company. So paying attention to improvements and customer value will help you achieve total quality management as a manager. So those were like the important points of the first section. And then the second section is organizational culture. And these are the key values and principles that leaders preach and practice within their organization. So organizational culture is learned through observing people and events. Watching and listening are 2 of the most important skills you can have as a manager. If you don't have these, you're not going to know what's going on in your company, and you're going to miss things that we will talk about later, aka ethics. Then this section also talked about the 6 artifacts of organizational culture, which are heroes, stories, slogans, symbols, rituals, and ceremonies. And these are just the components that help create an organizational culture within your company. So the important part of this section was the levels of organizational culture, same thing. And this is behavior, values, and beliefs, and assumptions. So behavior is things that employees do or say, pretty simple, as well as what the manager does or says. Like if you're gonna hold your company to a certain standard, everyone's behavior has to be appropriate. Values and beliefs are the way that employees ought to behave. They guide decision making and shapes behavior. So if your company doesn't agree on what the values and beliefs are for your organization, you're not going to have a good time. It's not going to work out because there's going to be clashes in beliefs, and people are going to behave the way they want to, which is not always good. And then the last one is assumptions, which is values and beliefs that are obvious to a company. They don't need to be explained, and they serve as an automatic pilot for behavior. So just things that are assumed by everyone, like manners are one of those things, I think, in all organizations. So those are the levels. And then this section also talked about how to create a good culture, and one of my favorite quotes in the chapter was, "Good cultures don't happen by accident, they are taught." So communication and cooperation are key factors in a strong culture. They require symbolic leaders in order to create a vision for the organization and reinforce culture. And learning is one of the most important factors in order to shape a strong organization. So a learning organization has good behavior, values, and beliefs, and assumptions, and is able to continuously share knowledge and improve their environment. And the book used the company of Amazon as a really good example, because they always listen to their customers. They always use external and internal knowledge in order to make their website even greater, and now putting stores around the world, which is really cool. So customer reviews and knowledge is just they're constantly using in order to create a really good learning organization. So those were the first 2. sections.
And the next section was about external environment. So that includes the factors outside of an organization's boundaries that affect its performance. And it also mentioned that managers have limited influence over what happens on the external, outside of their organization. The book mentioned that there are 9 major external factors. The first 5 are referred to as tax factors. So the first one that was mentioned was customers. Customers are a big part of a business and can really affect how the business proceeds. Success in a business is based on customer relationships and providing products customers want, so it affects what's being sold and how a customer is going to relate to that business. Competition was the second one. Organizations must compete for customers. Competitors' changing strategies affect the performance of other organizations and their strategies. Later on in this section, it mentioned Amazon competing with Walmart and another company that's escaping my mind, because Walmart is starting an online segment. So they're competing with Amazon for those online customers. Suppliers was the next one. And it mentioned organizations buy resources from suppliers, so a firm's performance is affected by those suppliers. The fourth one was labor force. Employees of an organization have a direct effect on its performance. Management recruits human resources from the available labor force outside its boundaries. And the fifth one of the tax factors is shareholders. So these are owners of a corporation, and they influence management a lot as well. The next 4 were referred to as general factors. So society, which determines what is acceptable for a business to practice. The second one was technology, which was referred to in another section. Changes speed and manner in which organizations conduct business. And as technology develops more over time, businesses always have to adapt to the new technology. Economy was the next one. So organization does not have control over economic growth, inflation, interest rates, foreign exchanges, etc. But they do better when the economy is growing, and this has an impact on a firm's performance and profits. And the fourth and last one of all factors was government. So businesses must transform to the changed environment, especially when laws and regulations that they must obey change based on the government. So they always have to be up to date with these laws. The next subsection in this was about dynamic environments. So environment is always changing, and so businesses always have to be ready to adapt to those changes at all costs and always be aware. So because someone can always come out of nowhere and crush you in the business world, was a big quote that they kept referring to in the chapter. Interactive managers make things happen for their benefit and the shareholders. That was mentioned a lot. Always kind of be aware of your business and not doing something based on someone else's. And customer driven is very important to businesses. And another example was Amazon. And I mentioned competitors. For those customers, their whole business is based on customers. So if they start to lose customers, they start to fall. And the next section was business ethics. A lot of this was just like, be a good person. You want to be trusted in the business world, so people need to trust a business and executives to tell truth and make ethical decisions. If people don't trust you, they're not going to be your customer. And that can affect a business very heavily. So ethics was described as the standards of right and wrong that influence behavior. government laws are designed to govern business behavior, but ethics go beyond legal requirements, so it's basically who you are as a person, not what you're doing based on the government. Deciding what is ethical and unethical can be difficult because a person is not all bad and not all good. So there can be that gray area in it. So you're gonna lose people, you're gonna lose customers even when you think what you're doing is ethical. People respond to incentives and can be manipulated, was the word that they used, to behave ethically or unethically if the right incentives are found. Justifying unethical behavior. As humans, we want to justify our actions no matter if they're right or wrong. You're always going to think that what you're doing is right, so we justify our actions if they're seen as unethical. And some quotes or some justifications that they used in the book was, everyone does it, I did it for the good of others, and I'm only following orders. So factors that influence behavior to be ethical or unethical. So things that were mentioned were personality traits and attitudes. Personality affects a person's level of ethics, and the example that they used was integrity is a major personality trait. So that would affect you using ethical behavior rather than unethical if you have integrity. So moral development was also mentioned in this section, and that's distinguishing right from wrong and choosing to do the right thing. And this affects choosing to be ethical or unethical. People's ability to make ethical choices is related to their level of moral development, and there's 3 levels of personal moral development. The first one was post-conventional level, which is behavior is motivated by universal principles of right and wrong. The second was conventional level, which is behavior motivated by the desire to live up to others' expectations. So it's the personal desire that you feel pressured for other expectations. And the third and final one was pre-conventional, which is your own self-interest motivates your behavior. Situation can also affect choosing to be ethical or unethical. So certain situations can tempt people to make unethical decisions. And there was 2 examples that I took note of, which was if you're in a highly competitive situation, that can affect you to be to make unethical choices for your personal gain or to even stay out of trouble. And then the second example was in a work environment. So unethical behavior is more likely to happen when your performance falls below aspirational levels.
Yeah, and the next section was on methods to help ensure ethical behavior. So the book talked about a few different ways to kind of gauge whether or not your choice in making a decision is ethical or not. The first one that they gave was the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Basically saying, this is what we've been learning since we were children, to treat others how you want to be treated, and not to put into the world anything that you don't want reflecting back on you, which can be very helpful when being faced with ethical dilemmas, because you want to make a decision that's going to be beneficial to everybody, including yourself. The next one was the 4-way test, which is essentially to ask yourself 4 questions when making this decision. So, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So just making sure that whatever decision that you're making is not only fair to everybody involved in it, but also going to come out with the positive most outcome for everybody involved. The next one is the stakeholders' approach to ethics. So it said, when making decisions, you try to create a win-win situation for all relevant stakeholders. And that essentially means everybody who, it's similar to the last point of everybody who has some sort of stake in the situation or in the decision. Their sort of feelings and needs should be taken into account when making it. And the last one was discernment and advice, which is they essentially advise to bring any decision that you need to make to an ethical guide, which could be a mentor or somebody who is a little bit older and wiser than you, maybe has more experience in whatever it is that you are being challenged with, and they can help you to make that decision. So oftentimes having another set of eyes on the situation will help you to be able to look at it more clearly and make a more ethical decision. The next section was managing ethics. So it talked about how organizations have codes of conduct within their organization that outline what they believe to be ethical ways to handle different situations and the best way to avoid conflict and unethical decisions. Yeah, it basically talked about how there are plenty of different ways to go about it, but typically the best way to handle an unethical situation in a work environment is to go up the chain of command from your position. So to bring it to your next highest supervisor and then go up from there depending on how severe the situation is. And if nothing is done, then you can be led to whistleblowing, which is essentially calling out the organization for its unethical behavior. And according to the law, whistleblowers should not be punished for telling the truth about an unethical situation that happens in their organization, but that often isn't the case, and sometimes they will be punished or even terminated for that.
And so at the end of one of these sections that people usually don't speak up about unethical behavior going on in the workplace because they're afraid to be labeled as a whistleblower.
The next section was on social responsibility and sustainability. And the sort of overall message of this section was that organizations that take their social responsibility and the sustainability of their resources and the environment seriously are the organizations that tend to succeed more. Because like Jessica said, people want to support organizations that are that they believe to be ethically good. So social responsibility, according to the book, is the conscious effort to operate in a manner that creates a win-win situation for all stakeholders. And I think that stakeholders could also be clients and customers. Anybody who's contributing money or time or resources into helping the organization to thrive is going to care about the ethics and social responsibility of the organization. For example, I know a lot of people now will not buy like makeup products from brands that test on animals, or if you're the type of person who only buys organic food so that it's ethically sourced and grown locally and that kind of thing, that's becoming it's becoming a bigger deal to people nowadays, especially. So yeah, and it talked about how it can pay big time to be socially responsible because some of the biggest examples of this are Starbucks, Costco, Whole Foods, and Chipotle. So yes. Oh yeah. Okay. So the next section was on the levels of corporate social responsibility. So the third level is benevolent CSR, corporate social responsibility, which focuses on profitability and helping society and the community through philanthropy. And then ethical CSR is about doing what is right, just, fair for the organization and for its stakeholders. And then legal CSR is about obeying the law. So there are 3 different levels to an organization's social responsibility and how they can sort of decide which one they are focusing on in that moment. And then sustainability is meeting the needs of the present world without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So we often think about this in terms of the environment and making sure that any resources that the organization is using are not going to be, detrimental or destructive in the long term to the environment and to the earth. That's pretty much what sustainability is mostly about. A lot of companies are going green now, which is awesome.
Yes.
Very important. People are starting to just take it more seriously. I know that there are starting to be schools, universities that are building a lot of their appeal to students based on the fact that their buildings are sustainable and like the materials that the students are using in class are sustainable and that kind of thing. So that was pretty much that section.